Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Spann Report podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann, and this is episode number 62. 62 of the report, man. And yeah, it's been about a week. A lot of things going on in the course of the week. Last time I talked to you guys, man, it was before the State of the Union address. So I know a lot of folks were a bit amped up about the speech that President Barack Obama gave during the State of the Union, and I'm gonna speak a little bit about that over the course of this show. I'm gonna talk a little bit about that later. But also, man, I kind of wanted to talk about basically some of the conversations that I've been having over the course of this last week, man. I've been having some really, really interesting, we should say, conversations concerning this word coon. Not even just the word coon, but even about homosexuality. We're going to talk about that specific. We're going to talk about that in depth pretty much on this show, man. But before I get started, of course, I gotta let you guys know. I gotta get the business out of the way. I gotta let you guys know how you can get in touch with me here at the Spann Report podcast and let your voice be heard. Now, of course, you can hit me up at the Spann Report hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave me those voicemail messages. I'll play those voicemail messages on the show. And of course, I will respond to those voicemail messages on the show as well. Also, if you want to hit me up during the email, you can hit me up on my email. The email address to the Spann Report podcast is feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Leave me those emails, and of course, I will play those emails, or I will read those emails and respond to those on the show as well. Also, hit me up on the website. The website has everything you need as far as the Spann Report is concerned. All of the old videos from the Spann TV channel, all of the podcasts that I've done, all of the throwback episodes, everything's available on the SpannReport.com. All of the guest appearances that I made on other shows, you can check those out also at the SpannReport.com. And if you want to chop it out with your boy, man, hit me up on Twitter. My name on Twitter and on Instagram, of course, is Mr._Spann. So if you want to hit me up, want to chop it up about anything we've spoken about on the show or just in general, hit me up there, man. We can chop it up and get that conversation going. And of course, some of those conversations may end up being something that I talk about here on the show. So yeah, man. But before, before I get into a lot of those stuff, a lot of these conversations that I've been having, though, real quick, your man Spann been dealing with some back issues, man. Like, real talk. And I never thought at 34, 35 years old that I'd be dealing with issues like this. But right now, because I know I was going to be drinking for the podcast, and I am not even that this is an endorsement. I'm drinking some Stella Artois Cidre. I think that's how you pronounce this shit. It's like an apple flavor Stella Artois, man. It's pretty damn good. And because I knew I was going to be drinking, I didn't opt to take any of the drugs that my doctor prescribed for me. So I put on the icy hot, and I smell like eucalyptus and like alcohol. Yeah, that's it. Eucalyptus and alcohol with an alcoholic beverage. So yeah, man, I'm dealing with some back issues, man. And it's I wouldn't wish this shit on anybody. Real talk, man. I ain't never thought I'd have issues like this early in my life, man. But the bills got to get paid. The bills got to get paid some sort of way. And I like having shit. so I'm gonna have to just make it through it and make it do what it do. But yeah, man. But yeah, I said I wanted to talk to you guys about this word coon, right? And I titled the name of this show Coon Meet Kettle, because it's a lot of motherfuckers out here who are, going about their daily lives, making sure that they deem something coon worthy every day, right? And I didn't want to, because it's funny, because this word has it has now become some sort of pop culture. It has some pop culture significance, I should say, or I would say, only because it seems to me, in the way that the word is being used, that that it's replaced hater in a sense, right? So you guys remember how we used to talk, like the word hater was used as a way to shut down any criticism, right? So if somebody came to you with maybe some constructive criticism, or maybe it wasn't even constructive, maybe they were just saying some shit because they didn't like you, right? But it didn't matter, because if they said anything that was contrary to what you believed or what you thought was great, you labeled that person a hater, right? That type of thing goes on a lot. You don't, hater gets used somewhat, but you know, its use is being faded away just a tad, just a tad. We don't use hater as often anymore. And it seems to me that this word coon has almost replaced the word hater in a sense, because it's starting to get to a point where if someone does something, someone of color, if someone of color does something that you don't particularly like, we'll deem that person a coon, right? And so it was interesting to me that the show Empire, right? Empire has become a really popular show. I think it's only like maybe two or three episodes into this show. They've already been given a second season. The show Empire has been given it's been a popular show. It's been a really popular show. I've watched all three episodes. It's it's okay. I wouldn't call it the greatest shit I've ever seen. It's okay. It's a nighttime soap opera aimed at an African American audience, right? And so knowing that going in, that this is a soap opera and it was aimed at an African American audience, I didn't really trip on some of the nuanced things that were being complained about on the show. For instance, a lot of folks were mad about the fact that there was a homosexual character on the show, right? And it was interesting. It was interesting about that, right? It was like, well, why are they forcing this down our throats, man? Why they keep putting all these gay people in all these shows, man? And why they making it a black show, and you have to have a gay person in the show, and you got to have a disrespectful teen in the show, and you got to have this drug dealing father in the show? Like they fucking up the image of the black family, right? It was like all these different criticisms. The gay kid, the black guy who had a white wife, the fact that Lucius Lyon, the main character, was a former drug dealer turned music mogul. Like all of these things became criticisms about the show, right? And some folks were talking about how the show was unrealistic. It was an unrealistic view of the black family, right? And it's, for me, when I watch a show like that, I'm not watching that type of show because I want like a realistic view of the black family. I'm watching the show to be fucking entertained. I'm watching this show to see a story play out. I'm watching this show because I know it's going to be some crazy left shit that goes on. That's pretty much what the purpose of the show is, to entertain you. It's not necessarily going to be realistic. And it's interesting how a show like Empire would be deemed unrealistic when that exact same criticism was used on The Cosby Show. The Cosby Show was deemed unrealistic by a lot of black folks. A lot of black folks was mad at Bill Cosby then. Excuse me. Because they had this idea that The Cosby Show, in its portrayal of a upper middle class family in New York, a father who's a doctor, a mother who's a lawyer, and kids who behave themselves, that was an unrealistic version of the black family. That was a criticism that was levied at Bill Cosby back in the 80s. Criticism. And now we have a story with a drug dealing Lucius Lyon, and a drug dealing mother who gets out of prison, and this multi-million mega mogul figure in the music industry. And this becomes another criticism of, this isn't realistic of the black family. And it goes into the whole respectability politics shit that I really not really feeling, where a lot of black folks are so concerned about the image that is being portrayed in front of white folks. This is the thing. A lot of these people they're nervous about how white folks are viewing this and how white folks are taking this in, right? And I understand that, you know, there has to be a balance. I understand that there's, you know, a plethora of other shows that portray white, you know, that are made for white audiences, and that they can see the gamut of the white experience through various different programming. You got Honey Boo Boo, and then you have you know, say for instance, there was a Beverly Hills 90210, which, by the way, Beverly Hills 90210 was pretty soapy as well. It had pretty you know, racy storylines going on with that as well. A show like Dynasty had pretty racy storylines on it as well. It isn't it is when I look at a show like Empire, it isn't as if I don't expect to see these types of things on a nighttime soap like a Dynasty, like a Beverly Hills 90210, like a Melrose Place. But yeah, like you know, I understand when it comes to a lot of, you know, a lot of white viewership, that there is a lot more choice, so to speak. There's a lot more choice. I get that. I understand that. I acknowledge that. But at the same time, recognize what the show is for what it is. It is a nighttime soap, right? So getting back to this word Coon, because Coon has been thrown about a lot, right? And I look at it and I kind of bristle at it because, again, like I said, it's being used quite a bit. And I bristle at it because, for me, it seems, well, not even just so it seems, this is what it is. A lot of niggas is scared of what white folks are thinking of them, and a way to keep other Negroes in check is to call them out for being a coon, so that they don't step out of what they deem blackness is supposed to be, right? So if I don't like, you know, if my idea of blackness is different from your idea of blackness, then I can deem you a coon in order to bring you back to where I believe your blackness should be. And that's where a lot of folks are like kind of getting off on this whole coon shit, right? And I know a lot, you know, I've seen was that Tariq Nasheed. You know, I've listened to Tariq Nasheed. I've listened to the Mac Lessons radio show. I've listened to the Tariq Nasheed or Tariq Elite radio show. I've listened to the show. I found the show entertaining to a degree. It was always funny to me when guys would call into the show asking for relationship advice on some pretty obvious shit. But, you know, there's always, I thought that shit was funny. I thought it was, you know, that was entertaining to me. When it came to a point where with Tariq Nasheed, where we want to start talking about history and we want to start talking about racial politics and things like that, then I'm just like, I'll take it with a grain of salt, because I understand some of these things that in a way that some other folks may not. And that's not the, you know, elevate myself above anyone else. I just have a different understanding of some of these things as well. Someone may have a different understanding from how I think of it, you know? So when I would listen to Tariq Nasheed, I would get that, you know, I'm like, okay, he kind of tripping on this shit, but all right, I'm gonna let it ride because I want to hear this other dude call in talking about how he can get with this shit at work. You know, it was always funny. I always looked at it like it was funny. It was some shit to listen to while I was at work trying to, you know, pass the day, right? But then I started noticing the vernacular of some of the people around me changing. The more popular Tariq got, you know, or not even just Tariq Nasheed, Tommy Sotomayor, the more popular these guys got. I started seeing the vernacular of the people around me change a bit. I started hearing the word coon and coon train a bit more. I started hearing the word moist from dudes a bit more. I started hearing the word hair-hatted hooligan a bit more. I started hearing these things from guys that, you know, from like around me, some guys in my circle or whatever. And you know, it was a thing. I was like, well, okay, I get it. You know, I know where, you know, I know where these things are coming from. I'm not buying into it, but so many people that I know were. So many people that I know were buying into these little catchphrases. And now you go on Twitter, Coon Train is actually something that you can go on Twitter, search up, and you'll have a whole fucking list of people talking about who's on the Coon Train. Coon Train's coming. You know? And it's just one of those things, man. It was crazy to me. it was crazy to me how uh, how influential some of these guys could be on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, on podcasts and whatever. It was just interesting to me how often these things were coming about, right? So as we examine this word coon, and I'm relating this whole thing into the show Empire because the Empire is right now one of the things that is becoming the coon show, right? We don't have sorority sisters that's on TV, and I know a lot of folks. I'm gonna talk a little bit about sorority sisters too, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the common criticisms of the show Empire, some of the ones that I've seen so far, right? And um, one of the first criticisms that I've seen was the fact that Empire was on Fox, and a lot of folks are talking about Fox as a racist network. They totally believe that Fox is a racist network, right? And I get that. I get it to a certain degree, right? Because we know that Rupert Murdoch owns Fox, right? And we also know that Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News. I think we sometimes confuse Fox and Fox News because some of the programming on Fox actually pokes fun at the programming on Fox News. The Family Guy has done it. The Simpsons have done it. Yeah, like shows like some their animation series. I think they have Animation Domination. They have a block of animated shows on Fox that would lampoon Fox News on the regular. But I think a lot of folks don't necessarily separate the two because of the fact that Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News and he's responsible for that, right? But it's interesting for that. What's interesting is that in their attempt to paint Fox or that particular network as racist, they forget that some of the first black shows that were in prime time were made on Fox, that were brought to us on Fox. Martin is considered a classic comedy, a classic sitcom in the black community. It was brought to you by Fox. In Living Color was considered a classic and still is considered a classic sketch comedy show. Much better than what we would get from Saturday Night Live now. You can go on YouTube right now and still go look at some of those clips. In Living Color was brought to you by Fox. You look at one of the first black dramas on television that had a primarily minority cast because there were Latinos cast on that show as well. New York Undercover was on Fox, right? So just dismissing the show because it's on Fox and you believe that Rupert Murdoch's racist and it's because of Fox News. Like we have to understand that Fox and Fox News are they're two separate entities. They're both owned by the same guy. But if you think Rupert Murdoch is micromanaging the programming that way on both of those networks with all of the shit that he owns, I think you're reaching a little bit. And yeah, that was one of the common criticisms that I saw was that Empire was on Fox and that Fox is racist, and it's no secret why they would put a show like Empire out there because they're racist and this is what they want to put out, right? So that was one of the criticisms. Another criticism was that it was a bad portrayal of the black family, and of course we spoke about the quote unquote realistic or unrealistic portrayals of the black family on these shows. Again, it depends on your perspective because Bill Cosby was considered an unrealistic portrayal of the black family, and it was portraying an upper middle class black family. The fact that there's criminality being broadcast here, or the fact that someone gets shot or someone gets killed or someone used to be a drug dealer, these are soap opera like scenarios. So to act as if black folks are immune to soap opera like episodes is a bit, it's a little funny to me. But again, if that's what you're looking for, if you think if that's all you see in that show, then that's your perspective and you're welcome to it. There's just a little bit more there, and I think you should give it more of a chance. Thirdly, why are they pushing the gay agenda? All right. This is a criticism that I've seen quite often. A lot of people are upset with the fact that there's a gay black man on TV. They are upset. And it's funny because so many would suggest that they don't have any problem with gay folks, that they don't have any ill will towards gay people. And I believe that. I believe that to an extent. To an extent, I believe that. I don't believe it fully from a lot of folks. And I can say right now that over the course of the last week or so, I've had some really interesting conversations with people that I know that have opened my eyes up to how deep some of that, what's the word, homophobia, how deep that homophobia runs in some of us. And I know a lot of folks are they're a bit, I wouldn't say afraid, but they shun that word because of course it suggests fear because it's a phobia or whatever. But real talk, there's a lot of motherfuckers that simply just they got issues with gay people, whether or not they want to admit it or not, right? So I was having some conversations on Facebook. I'm having some conversations on Facebook with some folks, and it was one of those threads from who's pretty popular on Facebook. I'll just say that they're pretty popular on Facebook, and they posed a question about people or whether or not people are born gay. And for me, and I will say this, there was a time where I did not believe that was so. There's videos of me right now on YouTube. You can go check them out. I have not taken them down saying so, that I thought that folks made a choice to be gay. And part of the reason why I never took those videos down was because, one, even though my thoughts on the whole, my thoughts on it have changed over the course of time and over some greater understanding of it, I didn't want to act as if I never said those things. And I felt like it would have been cowardly of me to take those down as if I never said them. So I left those videos up, even though my thoughts on those, my thoughts on that whole subject has changed when it comes to gay people or whatnot, whether or not they were born gay or wherever else, right? So in talking about this, like in having this conversation, I'm talking to people about whether or not people are born gay, whether or not they're choosing to be gay. And of course, well, right now my choice is, or my thought is, no, I don't think anyone chooses to be gay. I don't know anyone who would choose to be disowned by their parents, made fun of by strangers, made fun of by their peers, forced to hide who they are, forced to have to go to court to fight for the right to be with who they love, being told that in order to exist, you should hide what it is, you should hide who you are. That's how I see that whole scenario. I don't think anyone chooses that. I don't think anyone goes into the, being a homosexual because they think this is something cool to do, to be that way. I think this is something that has always been, of course, it's always been with us. Okay, it goes back into biblical times or whatever, although there's one scripture that everyone goes into, but they forget about the ones that tell you not to eat shrimp and things of that nature. They forget all of those things to point out there's one thing to say, well, you're not supposed to do that, right? So, some of us have some issues. Some of us have some issues when it comes to gay folks, right? And we don't want to see gay people on television. And the reason it's funny seeing it come from black folks, because to me, and of course, this is a Spann Report and this is my opinion, but to me, it seems as if we sometimes become the very thing that we say we hate, right? We become oppressors in a way that we don't think we become oppressors and we don't necessarily think that we are. We just think that we're being, we're just following what we were taught. We're following our religion and everything else. We don't see ourselves as being oppressors when in fact we are being oppressors, right? You don't want to see a gay person on television. You don't want to see a gay person. Like I remember there was one scene of Scandal where I think it was at Cyrus. I forget exactly what the scene was, but there was one scene last season where Cyrus, I think he bent over his homosexual, it was a prostitute that he was with, and he told him not to say anything, and he bent him over, and folks lost their shit. They were like, man, I can't believe they're showing this on TV and everything else. And I get it. It's different. You're not used to seeing it. It's different for you because you're not used to seeing it. It's something that you're not into. And for a lot of folks, excuse me, for a lot of folks, it's a bit off-putting. I get that. I get all of that. But at the same time, we don't have these same issues when there's a heterosexual couple engaged in the same sort of thing. We see it all the time. Daytime soap operas are filled with the shit. We see the same thing all the time. A lot of the movies that we go out and we watch have these types of scenes in them amongst heterosexual couples, and no one bats an eye. I get it. It's different. But to suggest that homosexual relationships should be shunned away, should never be shown and kept in a closet because this is something that we're not used to seeing is bullshit. It's bullshit. I mean, I take it back to, you think about how big a deal it was for interracial couples to be portrayed on television, right? I mean, think about, what was that the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier, right? That was a big deal at the time for Sidney Poitier to be in that setting. It was a big deal at the time. It wasn't like as if it was a regular thing for interracial couples to be shown on television. It wasn't a regular thing for black folks to have meaningful roles on television shows. It wasn't a meaningful it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a common thing. That shit took time. And even now we're fighting for the right, or we're fighting for representation of our experience in entertainment, in movies, in television. So to act as if this thing here couldn't be shown alongside us coming up as, producers of content on television and movie or whatever, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. I don't think it's an agenda. A lot of folks are like, man, they got this agenda going on, man. They trying to push this shit down our throats. Like, you don't understand. White folks are saying the same shit about having black people on TV. Do you understand that white folks are saying the exact same shit every time black folks complain about not being nominated for Oscars and shit? You understand that, right? Or do you get that? Because a lot of motherfuckers are sitting up here complaining about these things here, and gay people have the right to complain about, hey, man, my life experience isn't being shown. We should be shown too. We are here. Every last one of us knows somebody who's gay, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Every last one of us knows somebody like that. Well, I wouldn't even say like that. You know someone who's gay. And I don't think they chose it. I don't think they, what? I think I'm gonna suck a dick today. I ain't got shit else to do. I'm gonna just go ahead and suck a dick. No. I don't think gay people chose to be gay, no more than I chose to be black, no more than I chose to be male. None of that. Right? So getting back to Empire, man, the gay character caused a lot of folks to say that, they're pushing this agenda on us. They think black folks don't know how to accept gay people. They think we're the only ones who are homophobic. Like as if white folks aren't dealing with the same issue. I don't think the fact that there's a homosexual character on the show Empire means that there's a problem in the gay community, or in the black community. I think it's just one of those things where, hey, this also is going on here too. It's part of the story. Watch the story unfold to the point where you start seeing gay people as people. And I think that's pretty much what it is. I think when you start seeing gay people as people and not so much worrying about how they have sex and whom they're having sex with, in the same way that you're not necessarily worried about whom the next person is having sex with, unless of course you're a nosy motherfucker and it's none of your business. But yeah, man, I think a lot of the backlash, a lot of the fact that folks are calling this shit coonery is based on their their misguided belief that because white folks are going to see this show, and that because white folks are going to watch this show, that black folks are somehow going to have to battle against this stereotype or this image of themselves. And I got news for y'all. A lot of the people who are going to watch the show, whether or not they are white, whether or not they're black, whether or not they're Asian or whatever, right? A lot of the people who are going to watch the show already have an opinion formed about you. Black, white, or whatever. They already have an opinion formed. Watching this show isn't going to give them their opinion, whether this show was ever made or not. they've already made up their mind how they feel about black folks. Right? This respectability politics shit. and and that's part of the reason why I call this show Coon Meet Kettle, because again, you're trying to police someone else's actions because they're black. When at the end of the day, that person whom you're calling the coon is probably more free than ever because they don't care what white folks are thinking about them. They don't give a damn what white folks are thinking about them. They're going to be who the fuck they are and fuck your opinion about how they go about doing it. Right? That's pretty much where I'm at with it. And yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay, that's enough of that. That's enough of that, man. I had another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, right? And of course, NBC, that was what it was. NBC has come out with NBC Black, right? And it's supposed to be a news channel or a news portal. I believe it may be a website. I don't necessarily know if it was going to be a news channel or not. But it was the creation of NBC Black, and it was focused on black news, right? And remember that NBC owned the Griot for some time, and they basically bought them people out. You know, they gave the Griot back to its original owners, and they created their own entity, right? And somehow, folks have tied this shit into Bill Cosby, right? Folks have tied this shit into Bill Cosby. Said, you know what? That's why they had this whole thing come about, man. You know, Bill Cosby. You know, they trying to tear him down so they come up with this NBC Black shit, man. Understand this, and I know it's a lot of y'all caping for Bill Cosby right now, man. Bill Cosby did that shit, but it's a lot of y'all caping for this motherfucker. But y'all wouldn't cape for the same dude that y'all know had if y'all knew a guy who had 30 people come out and say that they raped him or he drugged them to do something to them, y'all would not be giving them this sort of benefit of the doubt. But Bill Cosby gets the benefit of the doubt on 30 fucking charges. But black folks have tied this into this NBC Black endeavor into the downfall of Bill Cosby. And they go back into the whole thing of Bill Cosby once tried to buy NBC years back. Man, listen, and I somebody even said that, like, you know what, why would they do this now? You know, nobody was competing with BET. And it's like, dude, BET hasn't been, relevant as far as black news in a long time. I don't even know if BET has a black news division anymore. If anything, it was that TV One has more of a dedicated news programming than BET. BET, once they sold to Viacom, once Bob Johnson sold BET to Viacom, a lot of the things that you saw on BET started to change. You know, you had no more I wouldn't say because this was going before Viacom bought it, but you had no more Teen Summit. You had no more BET Tonight. What was that with Jackie Reed and I forget this other guy's name. I saw him at an airport one time. I forget his name, brother. He was from Detroit. I forget his name, but they had a lot of news personalities on BET. You don't have those guys on there anymore, right? You did have 106 in Park, and you had Being Mary Jane, and it's been so long since I've actually watched BET for anything other than the BET Awards. Yeah, that's pretty much it. BET hasn't been a purveyor of black news for quite some time. So to say that NBC needed Bill Cosby's downfall in order to create an NBC Black, y'all reaching, man. Y'all are reaching hard. I understand a lot of y'all are caping for Bill Cosby. I can't even say more power to you because it seems to me like you're endorsing rape. You're endorsing rape culture. You're endorsing some real foul shit, whether or not you really are willing to admit it or not. And as a father, that shit kind of scares me, but it is what it is, man. A lot of y'all, I don't know. Some of y'all on some other shit, but it is what it is, man. Another thing too that I wanted to speak to. I can't think of it. Hold on just a second. Let me think on this. Uh-oh. All right. Let's see here. Okay. So here's the thing. I wanted to speak more. Um, I wanted to speak more in depth on uh on this whole. Hmm, I done lost my damn train of thought. And that's some real fucked up shit to do when you live, right? When you're not doing a live podcast, you can edit this shit out. Like, you know what, man, fuck that shit. I could just go ahead, pause this and whatever. But I done lost my damn train of thought. Let me look through. Let me hold on just a second here, folks. I apologize. Oh yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. I saw Selma. I went to go see Selma last week. Real good movie, man. Awesome movie. Um, I honestly didn't know that the guy that they got to play Dr. King also was in Planet of the Apes. I didn't even make that correlation because the guy he looked a lot like Dr. King. They did a real good job with his makeup and everything. He orated a lot like Dr. King. Really good movie. I would suggest anybody go see this movie, right? And the reason I'm making mention of this, again, we tying all of this shit back into this whole Coon thing, right? Movie like Dr. King debuts and it makes, well, I think it was what, 20, $30 million, $11 million, something like that. It didn't make a whole lot of money the week that it was brought out. Right. Movie like American Sniper makes $90 million that weekend. I think it set a record for that particular weekend. American Sniper made $90 million, right? And we're going back into this whole Coon thing because a movie like Selma doesn't see the same type of support that, say, for instance, a movie like maybe even The Wedding Ringer, right? Or a movie like, or any of Medea's movies, like all of the Tyler Perry films that come out. It didn't receive that type of support. It didn't receive, even though it was, is Oscar nominated, it didn't get as many Oscar nominations as it probably should have, but it didn't get that type of support, right? And we get into these arguments about what it is that we want to see. We want to see more positive reflections of Black life. We want to see more rounded reflections of Black life in media. We speak with our money as to what we want to see. Kevin Hart is making a killing, right? You guys would call him a coon, but he's making a killing. It's a lot of folks that support Kevin Hart and go see his movies. And I'm not necessarily saying that's on the back of Black folks. I mean, it's probably some white folks that like watching Kevin Hart movies too. But Kevin Hart is being a comedian in his movies, and he's making a killing doing so, even if the movies aren't necessarily good all the time, right? We'll go see a Tyler Perry movie. We'll go support a Tyler Perry film in droves, right? Not necessarily good films, poorly acted a lot of times, predictable scripts a lot of times. But Tyler Perry makes movies and folks go see Tyler Perry films, right? All right. We'll go see those films. We'll go make sure that Tyler Perry is well compensated at the box office when he drops a movie, even though he'll come out with some pretty horrible shit, right? But for whatever reason, movies that portray our lives historically or whatever don't see that same type of support. Now, we can sit up here and talk about whether or not we are we're well-rounded in the movies that we see, where we can sit up and talk about whether or not these movies get the funding that they deserve. We can talk about a whole lot of different things, man. There's so many different avenues in ways in which we can get content put out, right? But if you don't support the shit that you say you want, chances are you're not going to see the shit in which you say you want, right? So for a movie like Selma, a really good movie, a great movie, I would say, to not see that type of support is a bit disheartening, right? because you hear so many folks say, well, I want to see this type of port. I want this. I want to see black life portrayed in all avenues. And yet these avenues aren't being supported all the time. So we went through a period where we saw a lot of hood movies. We saw what was that? During the early 90s, there was Boys in the Hood, there was Juice, there was South Central, there was New Jersey Drive, there was Friday, even though you would consider that like a comedy or whatever, there was Friday. You had all these hood movies, and folks were like, you know what, they not showing they showing us as thugs and drug addicts and everything else. Okay, so now we'll show you Amistad. Okay, and in Amistad, you see a historical account of something that really happened, and now I'm tired of them showing us as slaves, man. I'm tired of them doing that, man. We were more than slaves, we were more than thugs, we were more than this, we were more than that. It's like, okay, not even necessarily thinking about movies, but you do have the Cosby Show, you do have Living Single, you do have people who weren't acting like clowns, people who weren't, so to speak, on the extremes. And we totally forget that those things even happen. And so I think sometimes it gets to a point where we start sounding as if we aren't necessarily satisfied with anything, man. We start sounding as if we're not satisfied with anything. And again, like I said, it gets to a point for me where I start tuning a lot of you motherfuckers out because I don't believe anything you say anymore. I don't believe you want what you say you want. I don't believe you stand on the things that you say you stand on when it comes to what you want to see portrayed as far as black life is concerned. And then on top of that, as far as this whole coon word, the word coon, I'm going to say fuck you to everybody who uses the word coon, because it's one of those examples, again, like I said, it's one of those examples of you trying to check someone else on what your idea of blackness is, on what you believe blackness to be. And that person might not necessarily subscribe to your idea of what blackness is. And fuck you for thinking that you can impose that on somebody else, because you can't. Right? So if you like Empire, watch that shit. If you like Power, watch that shit. If you like Sorority Sisters, well, you can't watch that shit. But if you like Love and Hip Hop, the entire gamut of those shows, watch that shit. But at the same time, if you want to see something else, make sure that you support those types of shows when they come out, right? Yeah, that's what we're gonna do, right? But that's enough of that kind of shit, man. That's enough of that. I want to kind of lighten the shit up. I want to lighten up a little bit. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about, it's funny. I done went like damn near 40 minutes and I ain't said nothing about the State of the Union. The State of the Union happened. The State of the Union happened. And, it was a good State of the Union speech, man. Barack Obama has always been known for giving us them good speeches, right? That's pretty much, how he gets down. Barack Obama ain't gave us a fucked up speech yet. Not that I could think. I can't think of any time where Barack Obama gave us some real fucked up shit, right? So, this is what happened. Well, this is the Spann Report's coverage of the State of the Union address, right? Oh, hold on. I got my audio. I'm trying to pull my audio up here. Where is it? Just a second. Where is my clip? Okay. I think this is it. Technical difficulties like a
C-SPAN network.
Oh, that's not it. We can't use that shit. Here we go. Wait, no. Technical difficulties are killing they're killing me right now. And I don't have it. This fucking blows. Okay. Well, no State of the Union address shit. But basically, here's what I want to talk about, though. All right. Barack Obama goes in, he's talking about his speech or whatever, and he says, I've won both of my elections. You know, and he was talking and it's like, I have no campaigns to run. Let's get this work done. And Republicans are clapping. They're happy about the fact that Barack Obama is no longer going to be running for president. And he had to stick it to him. So, yo, because I won both of my elections, man. People wanted me here. People wanted me to do for the people. People elected me to be a champion for them, so to speak. And it was interesting to just watching that State of the Union, how he would propose things that a lot of people sincerely want. Like free college education isn't something that people want to sneeze at. I think we have a problem when we start talking about how we're going to pay for it. And trust me, as someone who's starting to pay a whole hell of a lot more taxes than I'm used to, I'm a little worried about it sometimes. But the fact that there are these opportunities are being open to people to bring them to a situation where they can better prepare or better take care of themselves. I'm all for that, man. I would be a damn. So what? I got student loans, right? I'm still paying my student loans. And I think it was funny because a lot of folks who are against it was like, well, I had to pay my student loans. Nobody gave me free college. Well, okay, dude, like, why cry over spilled milk? Like, if we can give these people an opportunity to not be this burden on society that a lot of you motherfuckers who are poo-pooing this shit are doing, if we can give these people an opportunity to advance themselves, then why would you poo-poo that? Why would you talk down to that? Why would you, why would that be a negative thing? When we talk about raising the minimum wage, I have said on this show that I don't necessarily think that fast food workers ought to get $15 an hour. I have said that on this show, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that I don't think that someone should get a fair wage for 9 days work. And I do think that the federal minimum wage should be lifted to better accommodate the living conditions, or better yet, to better accommodate how it is that we live. The cost of living is high. To reflect the cost of living, I think that we should have a minimum wage that also reflects the way that the cost of living. To reflect the cost of living. I'm sorry. Excuse me. And last. I just think it's to a point where no matter, well, it's always been to this point, to where no matter what the fuck the president says, people are going to have an issue with it, left, right, or indifferent, right? Like, take for instance Ferguson. He mentioned Ferguson in the State of the Union speech. Folks were mad at first because they were like, he was going to go the whole speech without mentioning Ferguson. Then he mentions Ferguson, and then all of a sudden they're mad about what it is he exactly said about Ferguson. Like, folks are never happy with shit. If he hadn't said anything, you would have been unhappy. Now you're unhappy with how much he expounded on it. You expected that to be a significant or a large part of his State of the Union address. And a lot of folks, they were unhappy with that, man. Unfortunately for you, I mean, like, again, folks are just going to be unhappy. They're going to be unhappy with it. But I'm sorry, man. I got to get out of here. My throat is getting fucking dry and shit. Hold on a second. Throat's getting dry. But of course, again, I got to get out of here. But before I get out of here, I got to let you guys know how you can get in touch with me here at the Spann Report podcast. Let your voice be heard. Of course, you can go to thespanreport.com. Hit me up at thespanreport.com. Everything is available at thespanreport.com. All of the podcast episodes, all of the podcast episodes, all of the YouTube videos, all of the episodes in which I was a guest on other folks' podcasts. Everything that you want that's Spann Report related can be found at the website. That's www.thespannreport.com. Go to thespannreport.com for all of your Spann Report needs. Also, you can also hit me up at the hotline. My hotline number is area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Hit me up on that hotline. I'll play those voice messages here on the show and, of course, reply to you here on the show as well. You can email the show at feedback@thespannreport.com. Send me those emails if you have anything to say about anything that I've said here on the podcast. Hit me up at the email, feedback@thespannreport.com. And, of course, you can always chop it up with your man on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms, of course, is Mr._Spann, man. I got to get out of here. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.